Episode 24, This Side of Paradise.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of trekking through compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Episode 23, This Side of Paradise. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the compliance lessons learned from This Side of Paradise, which aired on March 2, 1967, and occurred on Stardate 3417.3. When the Enterprise speeds to the agricultural colony on Omicron Ceti III, they expect to find none of the 150 colonists still alive, as the planet is being bombarded with deadly and newly discovered Berthold rays. Kirk, McCoy, Spock, and Sulu and others all beam down to the surface to speak with the colonists and their leader, Elias Sandoval. However, they find them alive and in perfect health. Too perfect to health, as Bones discovers when he finds that Sandoval now has a healthy appendix, despite the fact that records show it to have been previously removed. Meanwhile, the colonist Layla Kalomi shows Spock the colonist's secret: plants which spray spores that take up residence in the brain and in return provide perfect health and complete well-being. In addition, the plants thrive on Berthold rays. Sulu is soon given a similar treatment and remarks to Kirk, "Of course we can't remove the colony, it would be wrong." Alarmed with what he sees, Kirk tries to get in touch with Spock. However, it's too late, as Spock is then frolicking with Layla. In the meantime, McCoy is also infected. Not only does he make himself a mint julep, but he also sends up hundreds of plants to the Enterprise. Kirk is beamed up with an infected transporter operator who is systematically beaming down the crew of the Enterprise. Uhura has short-circuited all communications except to the surface. Kirk is soon the only one left aboard, and he too is infected by a stray plant left on the bridge. After opening his safe and looking through its content, Kirk becomes upset, as one side of him wants to beam down and the other side is devoted to the ship. These violent emotions, Kirk soon discovers, drive out the spores. Subsequently, he has Spock beam up and proceeds to get him angry by calling him a mutinous, disloyal, computerized half-breed. Spock beams up Layla to explain to her what has happened, but the pain of finding out she has lost Spock causes the spores to be driven from her as well. Layla asks Spock if he has another name, and he only replies, "You could not pronounce it." Spock prepares a subsonic transmitter which will broadcast over the communications channel and provide those on the planet signals to become irritable and angry. Fights begin to break out, including between Sulu and Dassault, then McCoy and Sandoval, and soon the spores are driven out of everyone on the planet. The crew beams back up, and the Enterprise is free to continue on its way. Spock is back to his old self, but we find out on the planet he was happy for the first time in his life. Fun fact, the script was written, or rather rewritten, by Dorothy Fontana. She was Gene Roddenberry's administrative assistant, and he told her, "If you can rewrite this script, you will be my story editor." She became a story editor for the original series under the name D.C. Fontana.
This is a very interesting episode. Obviously, Spock in Love is always going to be interesting in Star Trek, the original series, and we have that here. Also is Jill Ireland, her only appearance in Star Trek ever, but she was a great actress. She is was a gorgeous woman. She plays the role of Layla really as well as I think anyone could. She understands the role she has and the character she plays, loving a Vulcan, and that certainly presages many of the things that we see Nurse Chapel experience. This episode also has some very disturbing and overt racism when Kirk calls Spock a half-breed to try to get him out from under the influence of the spores. It is difficult to watch now to see such language used on a television show, even for the stated reasons that Kirk did it. And the fight between Kirk and Spock is certainly one that we do not see literally, maybe one or two other times, but not very often. But the overt racism that Kirk uses is very troubling. What are some of the compliance lessons from this side of paradise? Well, I think there are several that we're going to explore. Number one, mitigating the risks of organizational complacency. In this episode, the crew of the Enterprise falls under the influence of spores that can induce a state of blissful contentment and apathy. This serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency within organizations, where employees can be lulled into a false sense of security and lose their drive to identify and address emerging risks. Compliance programs must proactively combat this tendency. Number two, emergence or rather importance of maintaining a culture of vigilance. This episode highlights how quickly an organization can veer off course when its people let their guard down. Compliance professionals must reinforce the necessity of constant vigilance, questioning mindset among employees, one that is alert to potential threats, ethical lapses, and regulatory violations. Number three, ensuring resilience in the face of external manipulation. The spores in this episode were able to subvert the Enterprise's crew's rational decision-making ability. This underscores the need for compliance frameworks that can withstand external attempts at manipulation, coercion, and social engineering. Robust controls, training, and escalation procedures are crucial. Number four, balancing individual autonomy and organizational interests. When the crew is under the influence of the spores, their individual desires and impulses override their commitment to the Enterprise's mission. Compliance professionals must find ways to align personal freedom with organizational objectives without resorting to heavy-handed authoritarian measures. Number five, empowering employees to challenge the status quo. This episode depicts how the crew initially resists Captain Kirk's efforts to break them free of the spores' influence. This highlights the importance of cultivating a culture of where employees feel empowered to constructively challenge leadership decisions, even when it becomes uncomfortable. Number six, maintaining a clear, principled decision-making compliance framework. When the crew is under the spores' control, their decision-making becomes distorted and divorced from the Enterprise's core values and protocols. Compliance programs must ensure that organizations have a robust, ethically grounded decision-making framework that can withstand external pressures or internal temptations. By applying these lessons from this side of paradise, a compliance professional can help build their organization to be more resilient, adaptable, and committed to upholding principles even in the face of powerful external forces and internal complacency. Striking the right balance between individual autonomy and organizational interest is critical. Join us tomorrow where we take up
Devil in the Dark.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.